What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Out Loud, presented by Klipsch, a show where we talk about the power of making and writing and creating and listening to just really good music. My name is Mike Barato. I'm a senior product manager at Klipsch. We've been making kick-ass speakers and headphones with the power, detail, and emotion of live music for about 75 years now. So today on Out Loud, we welcome Saba, a Chicago-bred musician. Saba, hello. Thanks for being here, man.
All right, thank you for having me, man.
So Saba's got this really unique blend of intimate lyrics with these really layered, sort of beautiful instrumentals and beats. After actually being featured on Chance the Rapper's Acid Rap, Saba's full length "Care for Me" came out in 2018, and it was really regarded as one of the best hip hop full lengths of the year. So we're really excited to have him here to support local businesses in Saba's hometown of Chicago. This episode of Out Loud is brought to you by Apt Electronics, just outside of Chicago. So before we start chatting, we have an exclusive Out Loud performance just for us. Take it away, Saba.
I was in West Oakland, California, when I found out about a piece of me. All this solitude around, I'm starting to see when I'm alone. I think I come from the part of town I talked about, but chalk your outline if you blink. I can't go outside today, that shine and fade and that go along with my pee. All the energies and entities and people that just want some shit from me. I can't make this up, the luxuries of being broke, fuck me escaping. Not to sound ungrateful about the blessings, but my best days are in my past. I've been working like a slave, practicing a little bit on it in my back. And then in the Ziplock, when they got a wristwatch, copper never respond. Anytime I risk my life, talking out of TikTok, watch it all on TikTok. I'm willing to bet it all. I'm willing to risk my life. And then in the Ziplock, when they got a wristwatch, copper never respond. Anytime I risk my life, talking out of TikTok, watch it all on TikTok. I'm willing to bet it all. I'm willing to risk my life. Yeah. I was in Bronx, New York when I decided this the type of life that I'd live. I made sacrifices, what the fuck you writing for, you know you do not give. I got right back on my feet, I fell face first the first time, I'll admit I did. Took a couple years for me to feel like I did not fall upon all deaf ears. Just wanna wait but the call that fear, at least I got a place for if all else fails. I went on a date, told the car that live. I told her lose my line, then no call back here. Yeah, I'm about to lose my mind, I got all that care. Hey, listen to me rhyme, it can't hold back tears. Gamble on a life, but it won't be fair. Trade it off for some sand in the beach chair. And then the Ziplock, when they got the wristwatch, copper never respond. Anytime I risk my life, clocking out of TikTok, watch it all on TikTok. I'm willing to bet it all. I'm willing to risk my life. And then in the Ziplock, when they got the wristwatch, copper never respond. Anytime I risk my life, clocking out of TikTok, watch it all on TikTok. I'm willing to bet it all. I'm willing to risk my life.
Man, that was awesome. Thanks for doing that. Again, exclusive performance from Saba for us here at Out Loud. So Saba, how you doing, man? That was an incredible performance. Thanks for being here.
Word, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I'm all right. How are you today, man?
I'm doing all right, thanks. So I got some questions for you. Let's just jump right into it. You're from Chicago. Chicago's like hometown to all these legendary, like super influential hip hop artists, and a long history of jazz and blues also. So what is it about Chicago and sort of the culture there that makes it like this sort of incubator for super unique and innovative stuff?
I think in my experience, geographically, Chicago being, one of the more popular Midwest locations is kind of, I think, one of our biggest things in our favor is that we're able to be influenced by everything around us, everybody around us. We can get influences from New York. We can get influences from the South. We can get influences from the West Coast. And I think, in my experience, what Chicago does is kind of add individuality to kind of everybody just in their own existence. So
Hmm.
it's kind of taking all of these influences, things that you are familiar with, things that you have heard a certain way, and kind of uh, becoming a culmination of this new thing essentially.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot of Southern influence in most of the music that comes from Chicago,
Hmm.
but also you'll get the East Coast, you'll get the West Coast. So I think you know Chicago is just it's a one of a kind place. Uh, so yeah, that's in
Yeah,
my
that's cool.
experience how
Yeah,
I would describe it.
sort of like a melting pot of all these different, not just genres, but cultures, and from all over the country, just kind of meeting in the middle, and in Chicago. That's cool. So I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about sort of family connections. One of our earlier episodes featured a sister duo called Lark and Poe, and so we kind of have this family theme going on. But your dad, Chandler, is not only a successful musician in his own right, but he's sang in your band. How has his music and career sort of influenced yours? I think we all have this tendency um, to grow up sort of in the shadow of our parents, or uh, whether pushing us away from their tendencies, or pulling us together, or pulling us into their tendencies. How did that sort of
Mm.
draw you closer to music, or did your dad being in it sort of push you away from it?
I think I'm blessed in that I have a super supportive family. My dad was always super supportive. I think to a fault sometimes, because now that I'm older, he's more honest with me and stuff. And he was telling me when I first I would call him on the phone because he lived in New York when we were young. I would call him on the phone and I would play him like my first beats that I was making on like my granddad's PC. Um, and they were really terrible, but he was just super supportive, just
Yeah.
as a parent. But he was telling me like a year ago about how afraid that made him, like, oh no, my son is about to pursue music. um so I think it's funny because like thinking of that conversation when I was a kid, I wouldn't have got that at all, like a fear at all. It was kind of just like, yes, son, this sounds great. Go for it. And those are the things that make a difference in my just being inspired and wanting to pursue music. I think I had a very musical family even outside of my dad. My brother raps with me as well. Um my uncle, his younger brother, my dad's younger brother, um is a producer. My grandfather, my dad's dad, is a musician as well. My grandmother, my dad's mom, is a musician as well. They had a band in the 70s. Um, so it's a long line of music just being passed down from generation to generation in my family. So I think it was kind of it's a natural cause.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel like a something I really thought about. It was kind of just like the second I discovered music, it was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah.
Cool. And well, we're definitely lucky you decided to do that. And your beat
I appreciate
your beats aren't terrible anymore. I promise you that.
that.
So, sort of speaking of that, like your music is, from a obviously lyrical standpoint and delivery standpoint, it's decidedly hip hop, right? But you you kind of draw from all these different styles, and maybe this goes back to the Chicago thing, but I hear like all this sort of jazz and soul and even like world music in your beats and in your music. Is that something that is sort of intentional? Like, what? Tell me about your writing process. Do you sort of intentionally pull from those genres and textures, or does it just come through sort of subconsciously?
um, Sometimes it's both. I don't think it's I don't think it has to be like one or the other. I think a lot of times, like being in the studio, it really just comes down to making decisions. And a lot of times when we're making those decisions early on, we're just doing anything literally. Like we're adding to songs and we're just adding as much as we can to it and seeing what works. and then we might start taking stuff back as it's going a little too left, or it's not really getting the idea out how I imagine.
Yeah.
But I think just as a person, I never feel like I'm one thing. I never feel like I just rap, or I just do this, or I just produce. Like, I like so many things, so many types of music, so many types of, I guess, art in general. Like, I like a lot, so I take influence from a lot. And
Hmm.
I had a lot of conversations about just how, regardless of what the influence is, me and you can be influenced by the same thing, and what we would make would be completely different just because of our individualism and our like own experiences. So I think I try to take all of my influences and kind of just, run them through how I would, and that's kind of how it comes out. Sometimes it's uh sometimes it's hip hop, sometimes it's trap, sometimes it's R&B, sometimes it's soul. Like, it could be anything really. So
Yeah.
yeah. And then I think working with the producers that I work with as well, outside of myself, um now you're dealing with all of their influences and their otherworldly
Yeah.
just inspirations for doing music.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of comes down to like not just influences, but you're sort of in this you're sort of looking at it from your own perception of what might be insightful to other people, right? Or what might like turn other people on, and so that I think
Kind of, but
makes your
I
choices
try
too,
not
right?
to I try not to even think about other people when I'm creating,
Good
because
for
I
you.
think it turns into trying to appease other people and play
Yeah.
into what they want or what they expect of you. And I mean, I think that's a struggle for most artists, is to be something because other people see you as something. So it's like you kind of develop this, oh, this is how people see me, this is what I'll make. But I try really hard to kind of just you know uh live in my bubble and operate from there, where it's kind of living in the oblivion. Like, I don't care how people see my work, or at
Yeah.
least I'm trying not to care how people see my work, because
Yeah.
ultimately what'll keep me inspired is what I like, and making what I like is what people will then like, even if they don't know it in the moment. It's like,
Yeah.
just keep pushing for that.
Cool. So your last full length, Care for Me, was, I mean, like an incredible record, and one of the, like we mentioned, the one of the best hip hop records that came out in the last several years. It's sort of a concept record, right? And it's the record was dedicated to your late cousin John Walt, who was also a member of Pivot Gang. And going along with that, it talks a lot about the depression and anxiety that sort of stemmed from his loss.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about the stigma associated with mental health in hip hop and music in general, and sort of what are your hopes for the future of that? Do you see Care for Me as maybe a path for other artists to open up about that? It's already sort of or currently such a difficult topic in the genre. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's always been something that is there. It's in hip hop. It's in a ton of music. People just kind of venting, people talking about their emotional traumas, people talking about just what they've gone through and how they're dealing with it. Because even my inspiration to really rap and be vulnerable, even before Care for Me, it had to come from somewhere. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't reinvent, the wheel on that. Like, so thinking back, one of the first songs that I heard when I was a kid that I felt was like, wow, this is like super vulnerable. It was the rapper Busy Bone from Bone Thugs and Harmony,
Hmm.
and he was rapping about being abducted as a child, and
Yeah.
just all of these like terrible traumas that he had from
Yeah.
that situation. And I was probably like 8 or 9 at the time, and it wasn't like it was my favorite song or anything, but it stood out to me. It just in is it's being vulnerable in a way that hip hop was like a box kind of where you had to be something. And even at that age, I knew I'm like, this doesn't fit into this box of what we're supposed to be as rappers. This is very out of that box. And I don't know, I think in all of my experience doing music, anytime I am the most honest, even if people have completely different life experiences, I think when I'm the most honest and when I tell my own story as specifically as possible, it feels like it is like those are the moments that people relate to the most, even if they can't, it's not like a, hand in glove where they fit the story so perfectly, but I think it humanizes the music, and where people are looking at artists and rappers and just musicians in general, like these superhero, larger than life kind of people. I think the more honest we are in the music, the more seen the listeners of the music feel.
Yeah.
So I learned that when I did my first mixtape in 2014, just being honest with certain topics and certain things and seeing how many people related to them. And it kind of just inspired me to keep, a sense of vulnerability and honesty in the music. But yeah, like I said, I don't think Care for Me is reinventing a wheel in that regard. I think it is a brutally honest album,
Yeah.
to a fault, even where it's like I have to still perform this music and pretend like these lyrics are fun, 1 2 3
Right.
jump and things like
Right.
that. But I think in the last few years, I think people are learning to just, I think, be more vulnerable, be more comfortable. You got even like mainstream huge stars. You got Jay-Z doing something like the 444 album and
Yeah.
just being vulnerable in that regard. So I think in the last few years, a lot more hip hop artists have been just telling their story, in a really honest way.
Yeah, you mentioned Bone Thugs. They seemed to be one of the first hip hop groups to sort of strip away that like over the top masculinity. And there are other like you're doing it now, Chance is doing it, Kanye came out, and it's all sort of like people don't want to see this veneer of like ultra masculinity. They want to see like the emotion that really propels the artist to create that kind of music. So that's cool. Glad you're doing that.
I think, well, in my opinion, at least, I think it's something that's always been, there. Like even when I listen to like one of my favorite like gangster rappers from the 90s is this dude Spice One. And when I listen to even the most like brutal, violent, super I'ma kill everybody raps from him, you'll also hear this pain and struggle of why this is necessary. Like you had to be this. And I think maybe like just my listening to it, and you listen to something and you understand it. Like it's not that, gangster rappers just want to go out and kill everybody. It's that you have to present as this to survive in these neighborhoods. So it's still, you might have to sift through way more lyrics and actually hear it, but it's still a lot of songs on those albums from the, that early 90 phase where you had to be a gangster rapper.
Yeah.
Where they're still expressing vulnerabilities. It's just coming out in a different way.
Man. Yeah, that's interesting. So I want to close sort of with, I want to talk about this essay you wrote for Complex just a couple weeks ago, published, right? And it was, it was really incredible. It was super insightful, super honest, and super transparent about like how you've built your career and some of the choices you've made, some of the difficult choices, not just saying yes, but saying no to things that have allowed you to keep, your independence, but still have a sustainable career with your art. So what's one piece of advice or knowledge that you'd want to share with younger artists out there who are trying to get their start?
Ooh. I don't know. That's hard to answer because I feel like you can ask me this in an hour and I have a completely different answer, or the next day.
Yeah.
But I will say, the first step, like with anything, is habit.
Okay.
Creating out of necessity, creating out of building the belief within yourself. It's not just something that's going to happen overnight for most people. Not to say it's impossible, but for most people it won't happen overnight. And even if it does happen overnight, you still need to develop the habit to keep it sustainable.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people get to a point and you get so focused on career and money and steps that you forget about the actual habits and how just creating is ultimately what we're doing. And I would even challenge myself on this one to also add just being able to check yourself, check your perfectionism, check all of that, and not to judge yourself too critically, because I think a lot of the people that are listening to the music, they have no idea what you are, where you are in life, and all of those things. And I think, that art that we're making in very rough draft form sometimes is the difference in people's relating and not relating to you. So I think, we are our worst critics. So I would say habit and just, lighten up,
do it consistently, and don't take yourself too seriously when you're doing it.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
So we close out the show here on Out Loud with rapid fire questions. So you have I don't know who's enforcing this, nobody really, but you have 5 seconds to answer each of these questions. So number 1, most embarrassing moment on stage.
What's funny is I was trying to answer that question before you finished the question, and I thought it was going to be most embarrassing moment in life, and
or that
I have the answer to that.
Let's
I was in gym class when I was in 7th grade, and this girl that I had a crush on was spotting me for sit-ups. So I was doing sit-ups,
oh, no.
and she was like holding my feet down, and I let one rip, and it smelled awful.
And you're still,
it smelled awful.
And you wake up at night thinking about this?
Low key.
Man.
Low key. Yeah, that's hands down. I don't have a ton of embarrassing moments on stage. I think it's mostly fine.
You made up for it in life, for sure.
Yeah. Right. The worst thing, I think the most embarrassing thing that can happen is technical difficulty. I'm on stage, 1, 2, 3, bounce, and then the song doesn't drop. That's happened a few times, but that's probably, I think, the most embarrassing thing that can happen on stage.
Do you know what happened to what the girl you had a crush on? What's she doing now? Do you follow her on Facebook?
Oh, no clue. No, okay. I don't.
All right. So best sounding venue or favorite venue that you've played?
Sydney Opera House, 100%, hands down.
Cool. Yeah. Oh man. Okay. When was that?
Yeah, that was before the pandemic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Back in 2018.
In the before times. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. And then last one, and this might now be your most embarrassing moment, but give us your best ASMR sound effect.
I don't know much about ASMR. That's when people do.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, the SM7 is always good for an ASMR sound effect. That was good. I'll give that an 8 out of 10.
I'll take it.
All right, Saba, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate having you on Out Loud. Thanks for everything, man. Great performance.
Thanks for having me.
Great chat. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on all of your social media platforms at Klipsch Audio for more episodes of Out Loud coming soon. Klipsch speakers and headphones are available at Apt Electronics just outside of Chicago, Illinois. And make sure to give your tax-deductible donation to the National Independent Venue Association to save our stages. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Out Loud.